Let's hello. Yo. Custom scripts and then delete key number 9. So now, camera's locked, thankfully not moving it around by accident. Now, go through. Ah, yes. With a hotkey, delete whatever key I want. Picking up right where we left off. So currently this is where my scene's at. Gotta add more blocking to the walk. And reduce that swing up. So it's later on. Inverted pen. Doesn't help, but here we are. Just looking at the action of the shoulder, the body, as he comes through. Currently he's not right. I need to put a key to match. My hotkey of 9. And then lean into the draw. Scrub with Alt and greater than, so I'm going frame by frame. Look at the timing. Change it to about there. The blade. So let's put a little bit more weight to it. About 94. See, everything's kind of popping and locking. Change that to stepped again. Fix its head. So I'm kind of retiming things. With retiming, things are going to be out of whack. So this to 94. Same stuff moving forward. As you can see in the reference, I'm trying to follow Matt's down to the push. rotate his chest around. What's that? 86, 80, 94. Rotate his chest. That way I can keep his head pointing forward. And again, just something that's going to save your life, make it a little bit easier. It's having the render camera in an alternate window on your second monitor so that you don't have to keep switching between of like panel to render camera and perspective, or like pressing spacebar to go to the other window. Just look. Quick look to my right. I see exactly how it's going to look in render. Done. Which gives me the freedom to, you know, scroll around, see how it's looking in world space. Just keep on moving. So I don't like how much this is moving across. Go if you like. Thank you. So less movement. It's going to be heavier, weightier. Again, don't get stuck in the details just yet. Plenty of time for that to come. See in this reference footage, Matt comes down into the up. It's a really nice overlap of movement. Get some leg, some knee bending, a foot adjustment. Has his arm swing through. It's all really good movement. I really want to encapsulate this into my performance, and it's going to add a little bit of counter animation from the rig, because as you can see, his center of gravity and his mass go right, and his chest is leaning left, like a screen left, that way. So his hips are going right, chest is going left, which means that here in this frame, 1202, I need to bring his hips down and to the right. Don't worry about the feet, don't worry about the knees right now. So even up that foot, actually. Yeah. Planted on the ground. Just so it's done. One thing less on my mind. Because it's actually pretty long lost cousin. Antonios Christo. How you doing, mate? Am I your long lost cousin? Or is the lizard man your long lost cousin? Or are we all long lost cousins? Will we ever know? Find out next time on How I Met Your Mother. Anyway, back to the animation. So now the foot's kind of, you know, doing its thing in the right spot. So I want to bring his hips, as I was saying, across and to the right. So you see that timing there. much from those frames. Oh, I see. So I'm missing the rotation of his chest in this frame. So from I would assume the rotate Y. Bring this guy up. Keep him facing over to the screen left to really have that push. As you can see. And then into the up of his hips while keeping his chest down. You know, it's good to embellish and make it a bit more than you otherwise would, because you can always bring it back later. Set up the keys so they're ready for later. Change it back to stepped so that I'm not worrying about the interpolation of frames. So that's already feeling better than where I left it last week, just based off the weight. And I'm going to bring it back to this section later, but I'm going to adjust the time slider by using this bar at the bottom to focus in on these frames. Because at the moment, you get lost and there's too many things going on. You want to break it down to pieces, handy little chunks. This frame is bothersome. Turn off the interaction with Geo. This button up top. Delete this key by using my fancy little hotkey. So instead of having to go through this window every time, with right mouse click, going up to delete, you can set up a hotkey with clarification of what the command is doing in the script editor, which is this one down here. So if you delete a key from the time slider, it comes up with time slider clear key. So I want to turn this into a custom hotkey on my keyboard. So you go to Windows, and this is, you know, this isn't going to be appropriate for every kind of situation, but it's awesome to have this kind of mindset of, okay, this is something that's going to take me a little bit longer than I want it to. How can I reduce this amount of time? And, you know, it can be appropriate for a whole multitude of different things, but it's unnecessary to get into. So you have the Maya default duplicate. You can't edit these settings, so you're in this current hotkey set. So the ones that are gray are the ones that are undefined, which are what you can set a hotkey on at the moment. Underneath, you know, all of these different options, there's so many different hotkeys and different things that you can bind to increase your speed a little bit. So it's worth going through and seeing what you can do otherwise to just save yourself a little bit of time, depending on your skill set and, you know, what kind of specialization you're looking at. So animation, effects, modeling, texturing, etc. Currently, what I want to do is set up a custom script to delete a key from the time slider editor. So in the runtime command, as I said before, we bring up this beautiful menu of the script editor to show us what's going on behind the scenes. We go to the time slider clear key, we copy this string into a new runtime command editor, give it a name called delete key, give it a description of what the key does, enter the time slider clear key, give it a save. And then underneath, it's probably going to be like this so far. And so if you're going to make this, click new, give it a name, give it a description, enter the string, click save, and then you'll have to go to your custom scripts and it will have these two with no hotkey defined. So based off of your keyboard and the gray keys, which are you know, different keys available for use, you can bind a hotkey. So now it just saves you that little bit of extra time of sort of going to that window. You can clear your whole time slider just like that. Boy, does it feel satisfying. just get rid of those keys without having to go position, position, position. You know, you're having to just do more work. And anyway, so that's something that I, you know, put that little bit of extra time into. It saves a little bit of time every single time you're going through your keyboard and deleting a key. All right, let's get back to the animation. So you can see this key is a little bit late. That's really up to me in terms of how heavy and how much this is stuck into the ground, and there's a lot of detail that's going to have to go into that, which I'm okay with. So I'm looking at his head here, the best kind of position that he'll end up in, so that he's still, you know, kind of menacing. Because of the character design, his eyes are quite hidden by this, you know, eyebrow or forehead. So it's going to need to be quite turned to the side to have the movement and visibility that you're after. Again, go back to stepped. And then we compare the performance of the hips. Just make sure he's doing what I want. So he's doing a little squat. To the lean to the side. Swinging his arm through. And his arm extends quite a lot there. Mine's pinching. So I'm actually just gonna try to even that up a little bit. You see how in the reference, sword stays down. It's just going to increase the weight a little bit more again. Instead of, voila, it's in the air. It's voila. Oh yeah, swing that up. Let's get these hips down first. So, from this pose, just pushed it, it's ground into the dirt. You know, feel free to ask any questions. I'm kind of just like sitting here talking to myself, so it can be a bit weird, but it's always good to do something different. Keep yourself on your toes and, you know, just find some things that are different. Back to the hips. So I don't want him to do this rotation here. So I'm going to delete that key. Delete all these keys on the rotation. Keep his chest up a little bit more. It's down here that you want. So now that overlap of animation is happening. See the rod isn't moving too much, so I'm going to leave that pretty much in place, maybe just a little bit of a turn. Back to stepped, and then this beautiful key, him right here, where he's then up into this pose of, yes, I just pulled that out the ground like a badass. Foot stays where it is, so I don't have to worry about that. I might have to worry about it in terms of the initial position, So just gonna bring this around. So that his weight's a little bit more evenly distributed. So that later on, when he does pull this out of the ground, he's not going to fall over. Because right there, he's almost, you know, his center of gravity is almost completely over that leg. So he probably needs to be even more turning to the side, or I can do it with the knee. Just gonna do it with the control. His foot. Key of 9. And because I've already made some pretty significant changes to the performance of this, it's probably a good time for a save. You never know when things are going to crash. Down into the up. So I'll bring this key forward a few frames. It gets there a little bit earlier than my character does. So this really nice flow line. I'll achieve that in mind. Firstly, rotate his head. Get this out of the ground. Again, referencing my second screen so that I can see how it actually is going to look. Bring this back onto my second monitor so as to avoid clutter. And then compare these keys. So he gets really low in here. It's a nice overlap. So I'm going to really try to push that. This arm coming up, the elbow rather. Keep his head straight. There's too much movement between that key. Bring his head back around. So it's quite on the side. His body is quite leaned over. Very much so rotating his chest around so his shoulders are pretty much straight. So currently, I need to bring his spine so it's in a back arching curve. Backwards arcing curve. But we don't want him falling over, right? So we want his hips quite flat. Pelvis rotated around. What his knees doing. He's doing that now. Change everything back to spline because we've added some new keys. I think you can change that so when you're so if you were to add a new key, defaults the tangent in and out as stepped, and if you were, it's flat. For now I'm going to leave that. I don't want to, play with settings that aren't my own, because I'm not going to stay here forever. So Just leave that for now. Overlap, including the head. Don't like this key. Bring this back so it's not breaking his shoulder just as hard. It's still showing off how weighty this object is. It's going to be Matt leaning into counterbalance of this heavy object. So him leaning into that downwards right. It's a very cool swing of his arm. Don't want to do too much, get overwhelmed. So from the overlap of this pull out there, so the key on his hips, and then the lean into, crouch down. It's bringing his chest around. Just keeping his head quite stable. Change some of these back to stepped. It's just the nature of the beast. It can be quite repetitive, quite tedious. Which at times can be boring, but potentially boring to watch, because we all want the magic immediately. Often that's not the case. A lot of hours, a lot of work, practice, dedication goes into all of these kinds of things. You want to get better. And if you don't, you don't really get better. So as well as this lean in, I'm going to add a little bit arm to prepare him to start swinging this axe around. Such a weird hand, not gonna lie. It's a weird shape. So I'm just gonna try to hide it a little bit, this obscurity. Also gives him a little bit of like a better grip. So from to that. So it's cool to find landmarks So in this instance, I'm looking at the Nike logo on his chest. I could bring this around more. I forget that this guy's actually pretty tall, and how far Matt moves from this pose to this pose. I could just bring him up a little bit so that he's extended a little bit further. Gives him a little bit more freedom to come back down to this. Probably do out there. Which is him fully rotated. Even out these controls again. Fully rotated, hips back as if he's caught himself. Make sure that you're not not losing the weight of contact in his legs. So as you can see, this has got little weight because it's like he's on his toes because his knee's bent. So that's probably starting from way back here. So for now, I'm just going to do it for this pose. Keep his foot down. It's actually got a nice little weight spin. So I'm going to try to get that in there. Give him a slide. Tuck the toes in. It's a massive area of connection, of course, the feet. Swings up, catches there. You get the arm, the elbow control. Sometimes can be hard to find. Just have a look at the direction which it's pointing. Look and see if this feels right. Again, do it with your body. See what feels comfortable. And things like this are going to feel weird unless you take that next step. Which I was talking about in the last stream. So sometimes you need to add an in-between that you might not want to until later, just because otherwise things are going to feel weird, timing-wise. janky. It's okay. Rotation to the shoulder. Bring that chest around a little bit more. Again, cross-referencing the render camera. Making sure you like the frame. Looking down, his nose sort of up at you. It's going to be menacing. Definitely rotate his hips around more. That way we get some cool tail in the shot. Change this back to spline. Stepped again. Or flat, as it's called apparently. See his elbow 90 degrees really. Bring this back to my second monitor. Give this between. Bring that up and out. And in the render camera, it's obscuring his face quite a lot. We don't want that. We want to see his beautiful mug. So just contrive the shot just a little bit. So not only do we get a cooler view of his head, but we also get the ability to see a little bit more of this blade. We have that weight of the real swing Matt does of the whoosh, boom, boom. So that's where I'm going to focus on this key pose here, where he's kind of like down and over. Blade's been caught in his hand, so now I need to bring this guy into it. Again, doesn't hurt to do a quick Control S, save, give it the rough pose that it needs, drop down his pole vector, if he's caught the weight, bring up his wrist. So this is a bit of an obscure one. Where does he catch this blade? This is where planning helps, of course. I want him to chop his hand off. I'm going to rotate this. The gap does fit, but that feels weird. Feels weird to me. That's not a very good silhouette to look at through the render camera. Let's bring that across. Bring it up. Let him catch it a little bit more neutral. Defensive. have him again, his eye a little bit more visible. It's not too bad. So in the render, currently, it's stepped. It's feeling better. It's more weighty. The axe probably goes a little bit higher of screen. I like my timing a little bit more than the reference because this is a little bit more sped up based off of the frame per second playback. So I'm just going to fix up how high that goes here. Move it back onto my second monitor. Trouble comes from not wanting to cover his face, you see? So if the render camera's here, it's going to cover him up. So what we can do is just not bring it so high. Swing this so it's using the weight of its own. Come up. Some shoulder. So now start to break this down a little bit more. That arm going back at more natural position. Push these poses a little bit more. This is the animation. So a whole lot of back and forth. So you can see he moves quite a lot. Just fix that frame up. I don't want his chest coming back so much. See what the value is. It's moving so much. Rotate X. Graph editor. Just bring those keys up. Sorry, key. See his elbow going back a little bit, so that's okay. Its head, look at him boogieing. And this one's a little bit too far over. Bring his head back. It's better. Might lessen It's in this frame a little bit. How much his head comes across. I want to keep that quite central, so that most of the movement is coming from his hips. Then going from this frame to that. I don't like that arc of his head, so I want to bring that across. I could also make it so its head stays a little bit more that way. How you guys doing out there in the world? Hope lockdown isn't crippling people's souls a little bit much. Still able to get out and do things. Always fortunate here in Adelaide, it seems, in South Australia. Other parts of the world not as lucky. Get this one across more. Get that hotkey again. That stepped. It's much better. So to emphasize how heavy this is, like how Matt is rolling his shoulders back for that swing up, and letting the weight of this axe balance him. So bring his hips back, chest forward. Really bring him to settle to that a little bit more. Again, you want it to be heavy, so bring it down. Bring the elbow out. Now we have him swinging back. Preparation for that drop. So give this hand a little bit more life now, and then I reckon I'll jump back into those steps that get him into this position. So start pose. Cool silhouette. To the next pose. Goes back, doesn't go that far out though. Keep that pole vector up. Again, the beauty of having two screens. I don't have to keep swapping between render cameras. See in the reference, his arm is coming up. Do all the secondary stuff on this pauldron, later. Doesn't hurt to do a little bit now. Again, sometimes you don't know where to take the next step unless you take the first step. Instead of keep going up and up and up, you can bring it closer. You can bring it down a little bit. The closer it'll be, the more influence it has. So step this. Take back to high school. I don't know if you had high school, had steps in high school. I certainly did. So swing around the arm based off the keys that you have. It's a bit of a weird perspective, but you kind of have to make up the pose. You know, where would your arm go? This position. Do it for yourself. Sorry if I just smacked the mic and give you a beating. But you know, again, think about silhouette. Think about how it's gonna look in terms of like pull factor. It's probably not going to come this high. Add some sound effects in your head, like just keep it lively. Some performance. Doesn't have to be a lot. Little goes a long way. Sometimes less is more. Swap that. It's not all going the same way. Step it. Focus back on the hand. Don't like that. Change this key to there. I'm imagining his arms extending, so he's swinging it through and he's turned his hand around. So pole vector first, so his arms straight, rotating his hand, giving him a nice big swing through. This is one heavy piece of work. Throw out. Sorry if I just skipped a song. Did I mute that, Ray? Did I mute the music? Smacked the extra hotkeys on the side. So good? Yep. Thank you. Thank you very much. Shoulder into it. Step. So bring this one up a bit more. Let's see. Not too bad line, but I just want to bring this up. Pose. A little bit, bring the pole vector back around. quite a weird thing to stream and to try to talk about animation as you're doing it, because you are really thinking a lot of this stuff and you see it through the actions of how it all goes, but a lot of it is just doing. So quite mental as opposed to physical, obviously. So I'm still chipping away at this hand. Sorry, I can look lower with him. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate that, man. Means a lot. Again, this is where you don't know how much influence it's gonna have until you give it something like this little hand into the up. It just really assists that movement. It's like that little comment from Dan, you know, it goes a long way. Just to assist the flow of the action, as opposed to just leaving it stagnant the whole time. Bring that around. So this comes back in front, looking at like the hips, direction of his pelvis. Bring this forward. Oh yes. It instantly feels better. It's got quite a nice hand shape of bringing this thumb out. So I'm going to do that too. Bring the hand back now. Give the life to the fingers. Don't necessarily need to be the hand. And then in preparation for him catching the axe, and then flipping around his hand or starting to do this nice little sweep up motion. I really want to capture that, so I'm going to add another key in here, the forward. Are you an animator yourself, Dan? You're still tuning in? Bring this scoop that Matt's doing in the reference. See, it's already, the beauty of Maya's interpolation is he's already doing the scoop. So really all I have to do is set a key, probably there. It's already halfway there. Now I just embellish it a little bit, give it a little bit more maneuverability of the fingers. So as you can see, he kind of like sticks that main finger out. To the catch. Oh. Have to tuck in that elbow as well. Illustrator, huh? Well, that's a good start. It's a good place to be. Still learning. An illustrator with some modeling skills, but keen to learn more animation. Well, I think they do really tie all in together. So, you know, keep up the work. Who knows where the future will take you? Are you studying at CDW? Do you prefer, like, you know, what kind of styles do you do in your illustration? keep this back a little bit further. Again, looking at the relationship between the pelvis, how far his hand's going. Cool. Working as a visual designer. Congrats, man. It's pretty cool to hear. Oh yeah. Fantasy and sci-fi. Very good genres. So a lot of the ideas come from within you, or do you go somewhere for specific reference? Short courses are usually good. I've done a fair few in my time, just based off of not really knowing what I want to do, and experimenting is always going to be a good way to figure that kind of stuff out. Comics, huh? Nice. Years of consuming comics. It's nice, man. What kind of stuff do you read, comic-wise? Could even create your own comic series one day, huh? Is that your goal by any chance, or? H.I. Nestle for everything. Damn. It's quite a broad range. Fortunately, I don't know a whole lot about comics, so I'm not gonna lie. Don't know what H.I. Nestle is. I'm sorry if that offends you. Or is that? Who knows? Maybe it's meant to be honestly. Same, man. It's like getting asked what kind of music do I like. It's just like, it sounds good, I'm gonna listen to it. Yeah, there you go. Honestly, graphic novels boiling away in the cauldron. Man, I like that. Cooking up some stew, huh? It's pretty cool. Back to the hand again. Heavy Metal Magazine. Oh, I like the sound of that. I would read it. Why not? So you're a bit of a metalhead, huh? Is it like a band? A heavy metal band that is playing, or is it talking about like the specific music that's going on at the time, or quite a lot of different ways you can go with that. It's a good topic. So again, trying to look at these like flow lines, something that Andrew Tran tried to talk to me about, and tried to show me some of my different works. You can just try to bring those flow lines, so it's like the curvature of the spine, really. And even the assets along with it. Just having different lines goes a long way. Graphic novel magazine. It's been out since the 70s. Post-apocalyptic sci-fi fantasy. Awesome, man. I don't know why it's come to mind, but have you ever seen the movie Dune? The original, I think it's from '83. I watched that for the first time the 3 weekends ago now. Very, very good film. If you're into, you know, kind of like apocalyptic sci-fi fantasy, it's some pretty good reference in there. They do a whole lot of world building, and the character creation and story development, it is incredible. You can tell that they have put a lot of work into it. So if you're looking for reference, should give that a sus. It's not a comic, I'm sorry, but it's so good. Okay. Just realizing this turned back a little bit too strong. It's the X, I think. Oh, damn. Last week. What timing, huh? Yeah. So you enjoyed it? That's your jam. Slap it on some bread. Make it a sandwich. One of the stupidest things I've ever said in my life. Do you think they'll, in the new Dune, do you think they'll do it justice? I'm a bit apprehensive, just based off of the, you know, the practical effects that they had in that film, and all the miniature work, the explosions, and the sets. Oh my gosh. Fingers crossed. Yeah, me too, man. Okay. This guy's finally getting some weight into him. His character. So where are you working, Dan? Said as a visual designer. Whereabouts? Feel free to, you know. Mozilla. Cool. It's different. VR project. Product, sorry. Damn. And so Mozilla, that's, they did Firefox, right? Yeah. Oh, so they've obviously expanded a lot more than just the internet now, huh? Although the internet's quite broad, but... Nice, man. Is that here, well, I don't know if you're here in SA, but is that in South Australia as well, or are you somewhere else on the globe? Me just assuming. So I'm just realizing that the blade is a little bit stagnant through here. So we'll probably keep it lower. You're in the US, but are in NZ now. Nice. How are you finding it in New Zealand? Pretty cool. Jealous, man. Beautiful over there. My stepdad comes from Palmerston North, so I've heard quite a bit about it, but I've never been there myself, unfortunately. Especially with COVID. Kind of puts a damper on things, but such is life. Agreed, man. Took the words right out of my mouth. Oh, it must have been when you were writing that. Whereabouts are you? Are you North or South Island? Auckland. Nice. It's cool, man. How did you get in touch with Mozilla? Did you reach out to them? Again, just gonna say it again. The flow line, it's pretty boring, I suppose. Considering the weight of the object, as we've set up here. Let's give it some differentiation. Nice. You got sorted out, huh? That's pretty cool, man. Especially if, well, how long have you been in the industry for? That doesn't happen too often, man. People seeking you out. It's a very, very good position. Question for me, thank you. What do you enjoy most and last about your process? The thing that I enjoy most about the process of animation is quite definitely the fact that it feels like you are, I guess, like playing a game in a way. You're playing a game of piece by piece, setting up this storyline that ends up coming together to form this big collaboration of different pictures, literally, to tell a story. And that's damn cool, that I can be in a position where my job every day feels like I get to play games for a living, when it's not actually playing games. It's quite different. But I was quite a big gamer on the PC growing up, and that's kind of the way my mind and my brain evolved to think, was this step leads to this step. And now I'm in a position where this key leads to this key, which leads to so on and so forth. So that's definitely my favorite part of the process. 4 to 5 years. Damn. Nice, man. It's a good amount of time. Hopefully you're still enjoying it. I know that it can be quite draining, especially if you don't end up having any breaks or anything, man, so. And I guess I don't know what the The least favorite part of the process is just sitting and being so involved with a computer screen all day is definitely the least favorite part. If I was to do anything else in my life, I would be a gardener or an arborist, or something involved with nature and trees and greenery, just based off of the fact that you'd be outside. But then there's its own benefits and detriments, of course. Life's about balance. So do try to find the time to, as much as being an avid artist is a good thing, and you get to learn lots, and you get to have the ability to enjoy life, having fun. If you are forever sitting down, don't get up and move your body, you lose the ability to move. Simply put. So don't forget to use that body. So what kind of role do you play in your project, Dan? That's all good, mate. Thank you for the questions. It's good to have somebody to engage with. Yeah, you must love the nature over in New Zealand too. Seen one of our co-workers, the fabulous Gail, who does all of our pays. She went to New Zealand and was sending back some photos and stuff, and damn, it is a beautiful place. Beautiful. UX designer on the visual side, concept art, web design, awesome. So how does that play into the VR production? So UX is like user interface, right? Please correct me if I'm wrong. Alright, so for the moment, this is probably enough to get away with. In terms of like base keys. So I'm going to do the less fun part now. You do user interface, user experience. Also just reminded myself based off of this little pop-up. It's good to save. Give it another save. So you do user interface, user experience, interactions, look and feel, all sorts. Wow. It's quite a big variety of task. So that's cool. Is it a big team that you work with? So now I'm starting on this section again. I'm just looking over to my second screen and trying to envision. I'm gonna leave these keys for now. trying to envision what the best method for having this guy turn is. And this is where getting up and doing it yourself is going to be the best way to do it. So just, you know, having that little squat and then going from left foot behind, right foot forward. He's probably going to have his hips and weight come back over his left foot and then step with his right. So I reckon I'm going to give that a go. Bringing this right, so his hips back over his foot, and stepping the right foot towards, and then I'll follow on. So pretty much like the reference here, but just having to bring his hips back and then feet forward. Then finding his way into this position. 15 or so, including engineers. Awesome. That's a pretty small team, to be fair. Becomes like a little family of sorts, huh? And thank you for the compliment of the... You know, he's come quite a long way. Especially with the beautiful reference. Makes life easy. Or easier. So now, I don't want this to be too quick, bringing him forward, and the animation is on of moving him throughout this scene. This offset. So I'm going to set this back to spline between these keys. So I get more of a familiar sense of timing. Thank you, Dan. Do you have any kind of links you can send through of the stuff that you're working on, or is it all under NDA and all that private stuff? So based off of this blocking, also I've set up a rough time of what I feel like would be cool, but I might just push this out maybe 10 frames and then another 10 frames on this side. Maybe 6 frames. And it's like he's walking up and grabbing, and then he goes in straight into Mozilla Hubs Online. Funnily enough, using Firefox for the Streamlabs, that's pretty cool. Oh, that's a massive company, man. So, do you work alongside, you know, the internet software team and all that kind of stuff? I'm not sure exactly how it works. Or are you your own individual studio for the like VR production side of things? Ah, cool. This is not what I envisioned at all, but wow. So, virtual room with friends, watch videos, play with 3D objects, or just hang out. Damn. Are you creating Ready Player One? Can I play this? No. I'll have a look into this in my own time. I can't play it on stream, unfortunately, but it's pretty cool, man. Wow. I love the little duck. Cool. A lot of communication between products, as there usually needs to be. The metaverse. Yeah, man, it seems that way. Have you played a lot of VR in your time? So it feels like here, about, just based off timing, comes up, and then about there is hips, weight, transferring backwards. And this is where in animation, and pretty much everything, get the bad ideas, not bad ideas, but things that don't necessarily work out of the way early rather than later. So from 66 to 80 to 76, let's get this foot flat. Fortunately, I built this little ridge to put his foot on. Again, it's always good to get up out of your chair, get moving, do some of this stuff yourself so that you can envision how the body would move in this sense. 360 video. So is that like Facebook? My experience with that has been like Facebook videos where you can load up a video and then your phone, using as the device, you can spin around and have a look through things in a different way. And again, make sure you've changing these to stepped or flat instead of spline, just to make life easier for yourself. Except we want this guy, the offset, to still be spline from these keys. So weight back. Just trying it myself. So he's gonna come all the way up. All the way out. Do you remember what the first 360 video you watched was, Dan? Sounds like it has made quite an impact, so. Gonna bring these keys forward. Just key forward. 66. Because in my body, I need to come all the way up, start turning, to bring his foot, left foot in, right foot out, etc. You're gonna have to weight balance. It's a cool opportunity for the tail. Give it a swish. Also, and do just make sure it's not leaving frame. Thank you, Dan. It's been a pleasure, mate. Appreciate the compliment, man. You have a good day. Thank you very much. See you next time. Blessed be, man. And good luck with Mozilla. See you in the metaverse. for chatting. Let's go. It goes a long way these days. Especially if you are easy to please. I am someone that is easy to please. I got food, I got water, I got warmth, I got some sort of companionship. I'm a happy man. That's all we really need, most of us. Okay, so let's just get there. The foot needs to come around. So there, his foot needs to be planted before the weight starts going forward. Otherwise he's going to fall flat on his head. Again, check the render camera. Set up pole vault conditionings. Pole vector conditionings. It's watching the world records for some of the Olympic events, and the pole vault was one of them. I think that's why the Freudian slip came about. God damn, it's impressive. It is amazing stuff that they can do in the Olympics. I can't do that shit. Okay. So the one trouble that does come with having the offset 2 influence the movement through the scene is that these controls are going to follow. So when he starts to travel, I could probably change this to world or set 1, right? Be world. So then instead of his foot being influenced by offset, stays where it is, and then he can freely move towards the camera, but his foot's gonna stay there. And then on this frame, probably leave it on world actually. Like that makes the most sense. Just gonna add a little bit of a ramp of speed. So that he stays on that weight shift a little bit longer. All coming through. Now, little goes a long way. That weight shift. It's actually not too bad. And I think on that, I'm gonna have a little break. Just gonna get a glass of water. I'll be back. back from outer space. That's a glass of water. Alright, so the less fun part of animation. Not everything can be fun. Something has to be a challenge. Is contacts of the feet placement. Just look at these toes here. Make sure the toes are interacting. The more you do now, the less you have to do later. So again, just trying to make your life easier. It's good enough for now. Set keys on the things that you want to be keyed. Don't be a dingus. Get your keys. If it doesn't have a key on it already, it's not going to auto key when you move it. You can change that. Minus the offset. Back to stepped. So I'm also going to, from this key, actually I'll just do it the same, to worlds, so that I can have the same influence over the foot as the other one, except right. Right. There. So that needs to stay there. It's a pretty cool pose, actually. So I'm just going to take this translate value. Maybe I'll just do it here. Change the world space. And then instead of like maneuvering all these keys, I'm just going to delete this key. Middle mouse click, drag 66, bam. Captures the attributes. More life. This forward, this a little bit. Damn vein, suspense, oh. So looking at it through the render camera. A little tall here, you can see. Keep him so it's still fitting in frame. The chest control. Bring his head back. next key, it's on 80. So on his chest. Let's just make this the same value. You can definitely tell he's trying to squash himself in frame, but meh. Meh. Doing splits. This is X. Translate X. Let's just bring this back under him. Again, making sure that that final frame he's not going to fall over, which I think he's good. Fix up the rotations a little bit. Shift, Control, left, right click, give you this handy gimbal instead of going through the object where it's like, okay, I'll bring this, bring this, bring this. You just want to keep this value. You just do it on the world. You change that to the world space. Easy peasy. That's good as is for now. I don't know why these toes are so different. So zero that out and set key on the last key that was important. Those are very important. Zero that out. So now we can give him a flat foot. Down. Worry about the toes later. For now that's good. Start to see him come through the scene like the big boy he is. Bring this other foot. It's nice to pretty much set up the beginning and then set up the end, so that really what you need to do from there is just set up the in-between stuff. And a lot of Maya and other software, the brain, funnily enough, does the rest for you. Not all of it, but instead of trying to figure out, okay, this goes here, that goes there, this goes there, it's like setting up the pace of him moving through the shot. So now I know, okay, that's how fast he's going to move, instead of etc. You get the point. I don't often like to over-explain myself. Anyway, what's this? It's the rotation. So I'll delete this key. Set a key, the same as middle mouse click. 82. He holds there and then comes around. Alright, so now something that's just gonna take your mind off of the annoyance. So the next foot plant. Let's make it there. Again, Sometimes it's not about being perfect, but getting the bad, or sorry, not bad, but the ideas that don't work out of the way first. So then you are getting to the ideas that will work earlier and earlier. I watched a really interesting documentary from Disney Plus the other day, which was recommended by Jazz. Shout out to Jazz. About the making of Frozen 2. It's called Into the Unknown, and you can see it throughout the documentary and throughout most artistry of people that put forward their ideas, which is essentially putting forward a state of vulnerability, and then when the idea or whatever it may be doesn't work, they themselves think, okay, well, you know, I failed and I'm now a failure because the first idea that I had didn't work, which is just like, you know, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. So I can understand why some people may think that way. I want to do the best that I can. But just because you've put forward an idea and it hasn't worked, doesn't mean that you've failed. It just means that you have to try again. Exactly like animation, exactly like art, music, or anything that's putting yourself out there. It's not going to be perfect every time. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to try again. It's like being a kid and you've fallen over. You're gonna, you know, stay down and cry. Say how difficult everything is and the world's not fair. Or you're gonna get up and you're gonna do it again. And yeah, there's gonna be days and there's gonna be times and there's gonna be nights where you just don't have the energy. You don't want to do it again. You don't want to go painting. You don't want to go singing. You don't want to go play soccer. You don't want to scream. You don't want to animate. Whatever it may be. It's always going to be something you don't want to do. And often, they're the things that you need to do the most. You know? Bring up that problem. Talk to that person. Go to the gym. Whatever it may be. Okay, so as you can see, I've got some more steps throughout the scene, and by first glance, it looks like he probably needs 1 or 2 more steps, because in the current spacing, I don't think his foot's going to be able to reach that far from back there to here. So step, so that foot definitely can come forward in the spacing of the shot. Maybe about 10 frames earlier. So I'll bring both of these keys 10 frames earlier. Step. Some more room. Both ends. Zero out his knee. Keeping up this pole vector. Oh, it already was. Bring this key forward. No point doing the same thing twice. Unless you want to, it's your life. In fact, I contradict myself. There is a lot of good things to do with doing something more than once. Get quicker. Quick save. So, step, 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 step. This is an interesting thought process where before I started, I could have measured his gait, which is the length of his walk from one step to the next. And to make this easier for myself, go, all right, how many steps is it going to take for him to get from here to here or there? And then, I have the rough idea. Or just do what I'm doing. Both work. Like anything, there's a million different ways to do it. Just find the simplest method. Legs aren't perfect for sure. You can see that there's a whole lot wrong with it right now, and that's okay. It's about those contacts of the feet and the timing so far. Don't forget the pole vectors, they're going to make the knees look weird. Bring that forward. Don't be afraid. Splice it up. Bring it out. Shake it off. Shout out to anyone still in the chat, still watching. If you are, thank you for sticking around. I and the people involved in this process appreciate you, so thank you. Just coming up to the end of the second stream here. Not long left. Again, using the hotkey instead of going through this menu. It doesn't take a lot of time, but I guess the biggest thing for me is my wrist. That I use a tablet and a pen these days more than the mouse, because from my experience gaming, I did a lot of damage. And so something like this to that, you are moving your whole, I'm moving my whole arm instead of with a mouse you're using the wrist in most cases, or your whole arm depending on the sensitivity. But in this case, to delete the hotkey, it's a button. You don't have to move your arm at all. And that's precious time and energy for sure. Everything degrades, everything breaks down over time, so the longer use we get, the better. Step, 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 step. So there needs to be a step here on the right foot. Keep this key till there, maybe about there. And then bring it forward, 62. You can go in later and you add all of the, the footfalls and contacts, having it feel like he's actually leaving ground. Depends on your style of workflow. Everyone's different. So that's not too bad. Thankfully, that extra step has come in handy. There's going to be one more step that needs to happen. And it looks like it's going to come in pretty well timing-wise. So, let's see. Step. Step, 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 step. So we're in the middle here. This final footfall needs to come in and ground him into the weight bearing process. So so that he's not going to fall over like a big old dingus. Like that little baby that we were talking about earlier. Step, 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 step. That was 1 footfall that needed to hold. Jeez. Yeah. Section. So this needs to be this key. So let's look at the render cam. Let's move this one just so it's not in the way. Find a happy key adjacent to step, which would be this one, 48. Bring the hand across. We obviously walk opposites with our walk cycles so that we can counterbalance as we're going, which isn't really an obvious thing, but it's glance around at people as they're walking in the streets. Walk opposite. Okay, so something to get the hand out of the way. Can't take the step unless you take the first step, you know what I mean? So again, here, good to balance that weight transfer. Swinging this arm around a little bit, shoulder comes to, open him up to the camera. Give him a little bit more of a cooler silhouette, show that tail off. Don't want to make it too you know, don't know the word. Let's bring it back. Feeling better. Just do the other hand real quick, and then I'll be done. Again, balance itself out. A little bit of look in world space. Works in world, it's going to work pretty much everywhere else. Double check the footfall key, 62. Let's keep this arm in line. Keep that pole vector swinging. Keep this arm back. Yeah, we want him to reach for it, but not just yet. Head turn. Chest coming around. That's all part of the cycle of the walk, and that can all happen later. So for now, I reckon that's probably where I'll leave it. Chuck in some spline, put the offset back on stepped, all the way around, put the keys on stepped, offset on spline. Let's have a look through the window. Save, sit back, sip. Yeah, not bad. If you can look through the mess of the legs and the way the knees are turning, it's not too bad. It's plenty to go, but all in good time. All in good time, little steps. So as always, greatly appreciate anyone checking in and tuning in. We thank you for your time and wishing you all the best. Stay safe out there. Love yourself, love others. Have a good day. Bye.